Good evening, guys. It's 8:30 on a Wednesday, and it is the 41st edition of the podcast. Thanks very much indeed to everyone who's joined already in the chat. I can see a few of the regular names in the chat who've joined tonight. I can see Delboy94, evening Delboy. I can see Mikey. I can see Stevie, Boxer Amp Britain, Dan Edwards. A few of the names. So cheers to everyone who's joined already. Hope everyone's having a good evening. And I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to everyone who tuned in to last week's podcast. We got Curtis in the chat as well, who's a newbie. Evening, Curtis. Evening, Darren. Evening, Amir Khan's Chin. But yeah, last week we did the podcast and we got so far 3,700 views. And I think it was in total 150 people who hit the thumbs up button. So massive shout out to everyone who tuned in last week and who supported the show. And I can see more and more people joining live. We're already up to 50 people watching. So that's great stuff. On the panel tonight, I've got Jet. I've got Paul. We have the arrival of Irish Tom imminently. He's running a bit late. We're going to have to be very, very sensitive with Irish Tom tonight. He was unfortunately stood up over Valentine's Day. And he's been a bit of an emotional wreck today. So I'm just going to ask everyone in the chat and everyone else on the panel just to, bit of kid glove treatment for Irish Tom tonight. It's been a very, very hard time for him, Valentine's Day. But yeah, we're going to move on and we're going to start by bringing in our lighter weight classes correspondent, none other than Jet, because we're going to start by talking about the boxing action last week and a few big names, decent names, Robert Easter Jr., Ralph C. Warren, a few names were in play that certainly keen to get Jet's perspective on. So Jet, evening, how you doing? Give us your take on last week's boxing, mate.
Good evening, all. Not doing so bad. I didn't. To be fair, I know you guys refer to me as a lighter weight class correspondent and whatnot, but this weekend was slightly uninspiring, if I be honest. Warren. That was probably the main fight. I mean, Robert Easter was in a uncompetitive fight. He won. I think he knocked down the guy in rounds 10, 11, and 12, if I'm correct, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I didn't really watch that fight in, enough detail to give a sort of perspective on Robert Easter Jr. He's a decent fighter in the lightweight division. Could he beat Mikey Garcia or like a top guy like that? It's tough to tell at this moment in time. But I think that the way he kind of had, quite a lot of problems with Richard Comey in his fight prior to the Cruz fight, I would say, it's a bit tough for him to go up against someone like a Linares or a Mikey Garcia at this moment in time. The Zakiyanov versus Warren fight. I know the sort of Eastern European, I'm going to call him. I don't want to be I don't want to butcher his name again, but yeah, he's a Ricky Hatton fighter, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And it's his first world champion, like out of his stable. So yeah, well done to Ricky Hatton. Well done to the fella who won. Yeah, I thought it was a close fight. It probably could have gone either way. I had a feeling they may have robbed him over being over in America. And yeah, I mean, not so bad. Not so bad. For him to get the decision, I think it shows there are some fair judges in the sport, and maybe based on work rate and that sort of stuff, he probably deserved it. Warren is a decent fighter. I just think, he's very amateurish, I think, in his approach. If you look at the Juan Carlos Payano fight, the first fight, loads of people probably said he won the first fight and maybe lost the second fight. There are conflicting reports. It depends on people's personal preference and opinion. But in the first fight, it was quite evident that, he's a very amateurish boxer. He tries to establish a jab from range. And for me, his jab is not a world-class jab. He attempts to throw the jab out, and he really, I don't know, it's tough. It's kind of a pouring jab. I don't know, it's weird. He doesn't really keep people off of him with the jab, and he's not a big bantamweight either. So if he faces someone like a Jamie McDonnell or someone like that, Zolani Tete, I think he'll just get picked apart. he's saying he wants the rematch. Obviously, he thinks he's won the fight. But yeah, for me, Warren doesn't really go too far in the division. I know he won the IBO and WBA super titles, but Payano has a ceiling as well. So yeah, I mean, good win for the sort of Eastern European geezer. I mean, well done to Ricky Hatton and that sort of stuff. But can I see him winning and going further than at the level he's probably at? I don't think so. They're talking about Jimmy McDonnell and those sort of fights at the moment. I've heard Ricky Hatton on Sky Sports, and they've been talking about the sort of bigger fights. And I think he comes up against those sort of McDonnell, Haskins, Butler, those sort of guys. He'll get beaten regardless of whether he bases himself in the UK or in the States. So yeah, as I said, well done to the fella, for winning his world title. But there's a ceiling for him, and I think he won't go too far. And I don't think Warren will go too far either. He'll probably win a version of a world title, maybe a vacant belt or something. But for me, they're probably pretty low on the bantamweight sort of scene at the moment.
Fair enough. I was keen to ask you about Robert Easter Jr.
Yeah.
Paul actually flagged Robert Easter Jr. A while back now as someone he was a real fan of. And to be honest, a lot of people I know who know their boxing really, really, really rate Robert Easter Jr. But what I find interesting is I only ever hear positive stuff about Easter. But people don't seem to have him on the same level as, a Linares or a Garcia, etc. So I guess the first question, Jet, is what are the deficiencies in his game that will potentially stop him from getting to that level? And secondly, if we throw the likes of Terry Flanagan into the mix as well, how do you rank those lightweights at present?
Yeah, I mean, Easter's a pretty decent fighter. Don't get me wrong, but I think if you go back and watch the Richard Comey fight, I think for a lot of the people that are probably saying that he's got immense skills and great boxing technique, whatnot, I just think he kind of negated his boxing skills. I think he got caught up in a brawl with Richard Comey, and he really played into his hands. And yeah, I just think he probably gets caught up in a brawl. I do think he can refine his skills. If you look at someone like a Mikey Garcia, he does the basics, but his basics are pretty awesome, to be fair. So, I just think he needs a bit of refining. Maybe that means changing trainer. I'm not sure, but he is a good fighter in the division. He's not someone that you would count out against any of the top guys. I think he certainly got some decent skills and pedigree. So yeah, let's see if he can get to that elite level, I guess. In terms of ranking at lightweight, there are some really good lightweights out there. Regardless of whether you look at the European scene, British scene, world scene, there are some really good guys that you may see kind of step up into the world scene if they get a few big wins. Obviously, you have Luke Campbell over here. He's a decent fighter. Whether he'll get to world level or not, that's another question. You had Kevin Mitchell before, from the British scene. For me, probably if you rank it now in current day terms, I'd say Mikey Garcia probably goes in at number one. Obviously not resume, but if you look from sort of past experience, he's a 3-weight world champion. I know Linares is also, but he looked devastating against a pretty much a top guy in Dejan Zlatikanin. Linares number two. You can kind of debate if you want Garcia or Linares number one, but for me, Linares probably slots in at number two. Then this is a tough one. I don't know, because Terry Flanagan hasn't really faced anyone. Who would you say is his best opponent on his resume? Stephen Ormond, Jose Zepeda, Diego Magdaleno. Those guys are kind of fringe world level guys. Well, Stephen Ormond certainly not, but the guys he's kind of faced, they're not world level fighters for me. And yeah, he's probably loads of people rate Terry Flanagan really highly. I think he's a decent fighter myself, but he'd probably have to go in at number three, maybe. Just Easter's only faced Comey, I think, and Comey's a pretty good fighter, but he's not really faced anyone above that level. I think even though Flanagan has faced fringe world level fighters, they're kind of just above the Robert Easter level of opponent, even though Commie's that one decent opponent. It's kind of similar to sort of Kell Brook, I guess. You know, Kell Brook's sort of his biggest win against Sean Porter, and then obviously you kind of look down his record is quite razor thin. Obviously, the biggest sort of fight in his career he's lost against Gennady Golovkin. So it's a tough one to rank them, but yeah, Flanagan just at number 3, and then you know Robert East at 4. There's a few other good fighters within sort of the world level European scene. Edis Tatley, those sort of guys, they may float in below them, but yeah, that'd probably be my 1 to 4 in terms of the champions at the moment.
Yeah, some really, really good fights there. And I see Easter Jr. was quick to call out some of the big names, and Mikey Garcia, etc. So, yeah, potentially some big fights for the boxing hardcore. But no, appreciate that, Jet. I'll start by, I'll swing it over to Paul now. So, Paul, sticking with the Robert Easter theme, I know you're an advocate of his. Did you catch the fight this weekend?
Yeah, I didn't see all of it. I seen bits of it. He looked okay. Sort of had a really busy week, but he looked okay. I kind of expected him to stop Cruz, if I'm honest. I kind of like, I don't know. I liked Robert Easter a lot. You know, like you said, Tom. I kind of like, guess was the first person to say anything about him on air even before he won a title or anything, but he's looked sort of like he's good. He's good. He's got a lot of skills. He's got a lot of attributes. He's tall. He's very rangy at the weight and stuff. Has Barthélemy moved up? Has he?
Yeah, he's at 140, mate.
Yeah, because I noticed you didn't mention Barthélemy. I'm guessing he's moved up. Yeah, because I would.
Yeah, so yeah, Paul. His last fight was at 140, so it was on PBC. So yeah, he's at 140.
Yeah, is he staying at 140 though?
Yeah, I'd assume so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Quite big for the weight. He's quite big for 135 anyway. I think, to be fair, I don't know if you'd agree, but the top guys are kind of massive for 135.
Yeah,
I mean, Garcia's a good fit for that division. Linares is quite tall. Easter's a unit. Terry Flanagan is, heavily built. I think they're quite big for the weight. But
yeah, Easter's definitely big at the weight, I think. I don't know how big Mikey is at the weight because he's come up a couple of weights, hasn't he? So I don't know. I'd have to look on BoxRec and whatnot. I think Easter's like 5'11" or something. But he's quite athletic as well. I mean, yeah, he didn't impress me as much as I would have liked. He seemed to be quite desperately looking for the knockout and didn't seem to be able to stop this guy Cruz. You would have really expected him. He was a C-level fighter. You'd have expected him to stop him if he's the goods, So yeah, I mean, it was an all right performance from what I saw. Raushi Warren. I don't know if Jet. Did you see that fight? Because I know
I saw bits and pieces of it. I mean, I didn't watch the whole fight in its entirety. I couldn't catch it after on YouTube. But I did watch bits and pieces of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't close. Like when you.
Loads of people are saying they gave it really close. I mean, I know that obviously Zanat won, but loads of people said it was. I was reading some forums and loads of people had it close. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't score it myself, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, no, I guess you probably didn't see it. I mean, I don't think it was close myself. I think Warren come out just like all guns blazing. I think he actually dropped.
Yeah, he dropped him, didn't he? Yeah.
Nothing in the first round, but then he seemed to just go right off the boil, almost like he'd punched himself out, which sounds a bit crazy, but that's obviously I don't know what was going on exactly, but that's what it seemed like to me. It was like he'd punched himself out. And then for me, Zach, I'm also not going to try it. Well, I will. Zakhianov, I think.
Zakhianov, yeah.
Zakhianov, yeah. I think he kind of like he pretty much dominated the fight after the second round for me. I thought he was just his work rate. I just thought he kind of like would he. I mean, it would have been hard for them to give that to Raushi Warren, even in the US. You know, it was a good win for this kid. I'd never seen him box before, this Zakyanov. So yeah, as for the lightweight division, I mean, sorry to switch back, but I know Easter was calling out. I don't know if did he call out Mikey Garcia, or were people just talking about? There's like a bit of a buzz about that now. Easter Garcia. I'm not sure if it will happen. Personally, I think Mikey Garcia is a level above him. The size sort of like difference might be a factor. If the size difference isn't a factor, you know, all things being equal, I think Mikey Garcia has got way too much for Robert Easter. While I do like Robert Easter, I think just the last couple of fights, like Jet said, Comey, he kind of got into a bit of a war with Comey, and just the last couple of fights, he's just looked like he's gone off the boil a little bit as he's hit a slightly higher level of opposition. So personally, I think Garcia is a level above. So I personally think Garcia is probably the best in that division. I think Linares maybe would have been a couple of years ago. Though he looked good in his last fight, obviously, but I still think he's getting on, and he's very war beaten, isn't he, Linares? You know, I don't know how much more he's got left. So yeah, I'd probably put Garcia as the top guy in that division now.
Interesting stuff. All right, cheers, Paul. Did you see any of the heavyweight action at your call this weekend?
No, I've had a ridiculously busy week, and I was intending to try and catch some of it today before the show and stuff, but the gods have not been smiling on me.
Life gets in the way sometimes, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm gonna let Iris Tom out of the cage. So we're gonna bring Iris in. Tom, first question. Valentine's Day. Tell us what went down.
All I can say is the missus is a lucky woman.
Absolutely. Was it dinner in or dinner out?
Greeted her at the door in my birthday suit.
Wow.
And it went uphill from there.
She's a lucky girl, I'll tell you that. Tom, did you happen to watch any of the boxing this weekend? Did anything particularly?
I only watched the one fight. I watched the Raushi Warren fight.
Okay.
Which I thought was quite a good fight. I thought Yaman, you know, Ricky Hatton seems to be doing a good job with some of these fighters. They're really stylistically like him. He's turning them, particularly Yaman. What's his name? Zizi. What's his actual name? Anybody know his name?
Is Zanat Zakyanov.
Yeah,
Zakyanov.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he kind of looked very similar in style to Ricky. How he got in to do the body work, and he had a great engine. No, I think Ricky's looks like he's a good trainer. That's two Eastern Bloc guys he's kind of took from obscurity, and Relic and him, and they've done pretty damn good under Ricky. I think he's a good fighter for if you're looking to be an aggressive body punching guy. He's a good fighter. Somebody like Errol Spence could probably do well under Ricky. But I thought Zizi Yaman won it, but I thought when they read out the scorecards he was getting robbed. But good fight. But didn't see the Robert Easter Jr. fight yet. I heard he wasn't that good. I don't think he's that good. I think he looks like he has. Sometimes when he's in a fight for a round or two, he'll look very good, but he kind of reminds me of Paul William, of a guy who doesn't actually utilize his advantages and throws them away. I pick Mikey to just walk through him, no hassle.
Really? Okay. Obviously, you're a pretty big Mikey Garcia fan. How do you, like we asked Jet earlier, do you see Garcia number one? But if you look at the next guys down, Flanagan, Linares, Easter, are they much of a muchness, or do you see like a definite number two?
Well, I think like Mikey's about 2 or 3 levels ahead of all the rest. Mikey for me is top 5 pound for pound. In a few years he might even be top 3. But I think then you go down to Linares, who is a good fighter, but you can never say he's top 5 or anything, because he's got a good few losses and he cuts up and he's not got a great chin and stuff like that. So I think it's probably him number 2. And then we have, I probably think, who are the other world champions? We've got Terry and who else?
Terry and Easter.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think Terry and Easter are probably a similar level. I think Terry's a better boxer, but he mightn't have but Easter's got the physical advantages. But the other thing is, if Kami, who's kind of unproven, really went life and death with Easter, and then Shafikov bet Kami, I think Terry's a bit above them, so I'd probably have Terry 3rd, and then Easter 4th, and then Shafikov and Krala and some of them other lads kind of trailing off Kami. They're all about the same. I'd say Shafikov, Krala, Kami, they're all about the same, probably bottom end of the top 10.
Fantastic.
I think Felix Videa as well, not just yet, he hasn't fought anyone yet, but
I don't rate him at all, Paul.
A few years might be creeping up. I think he's all right. I
think he looked, I saw his fight, some of his highlights of this fight the other week, and he looked pretty bad, I'll be honest. So I don't know, maybe just a time, they're trying to build him as
there's also
or something like that. So, yeah.
He's younger than that.
Luke Campbell.
Luke,
the same with
Luke Campbell. Yeah, there's also Luke Campbell. He is young, Paul, but I don't. I saw one of his more recent fights, and he was in against a low-ish, mid-level journeyman. And to be honest with you, if that journeyman had an 8-week camp, I think he would have been able to beat him.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
I think he's very overrated. He looks really good. He's got fast hands and all that kind of stuff, and he looks impressive. But when he stepped, and he was knocking fellas out for fun, but once he stepped up to any even remotely top 50 level, the knockout stopped, and his confidence, he didn't look the same boxer at all. So I'd have Luke Campbell ahead of him.
Interesting. Okay, let's we'll move it on from last week's boxing, because in all honesty, it wasn't a vintage week of action from last week. So perhaps some of the more meaty topics that we can get into are in the later sections, and discussing some of the news in the sport. So we're going to start with a topic that I actually missed off the initial agenda for tonight, and Irish Tom actually came back and suggested it. So we'll stick with yourself, Tom, if we may. Billy Joe Saunders versus Gennady Golovkin. Momentum for this fight seems to be growing and growing and growing. There was an interview with Frank Warren on IFL TV where he suggested that Billy Joe Saunders had to fight his mandatory. It's now being reported that the mandatory, Kurt Cedars, has accepted step-aside money with a view to Billy Joe Saunders taking a big fight. So nothing confirmed, nothing announced, but lots of the rumours out there are that this fight, Triple G versus Billy Joe Saunders, is actually closer to becoming a reality. So, Tom, your take on that, mate?
Yeah, well, when you came up with this the last time, and it's supposed to be in Kazakhstan, I think I was very dismissive, and I don't know if everybody else was, but certainly I was. But it does seem to be gaining traction. So, very strange. I can't imagine worse preparation for Triple G than last fight. So I don't know what he's thinking. He must be getting very big money. I think he's probably afraid that he might never get that money option again if the Canelo fight happens in September, that he has to get it in May, because he might actually vacate and move up to 168 or something. So I think maybe just Billy Joe is just...
Or Golovkin.
Sorry?
Who are you saying will potentially vacate? Saunders or Golovkin?
GGG, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he might head up north. And so if he does, there goes a good few $1 million for Billy Joe Saunders. So I think that's probably what it is. I like Billy Joe, but I don't give him any hope in that fight. I can see him taking rounds. Like if Kell Brook's able to take one round off him, Billy Joe will be able to take 2 or 3 stop before he gets to take them off him. So yeah, it's a kind of I think it's just a business decision. But so he's probably going to cash out, and he mightn't actually. Wouldn't be surprised Billy Joe Saunders retired.
Apparently, Billy Joe Saunders is very, very shrewd with money and has made very, very sensible financial investments and is really, well looked after financially, which is good to hear. Because so many times in boxing, characters like Billy Joe Saunders don't end up in that space. But yeah, do you know what, Tom? I really watched Brook Golovkin this week.
So did I.
Did you? What exciting lives you and I live, right?
That was so boring.
You know what my thought was? What's in that fight is Brook was actually having a lot of success catching Golovkin. He was landing some nice punches on him. Golovkin, slightly limited head movement, slightly hittable at times, but Brook just couldn't do any damage. And what I thought watching that fight is that it's going to be very, very hard to beat Golovkin on the back foot, trying to box him long. Billy Joe Saunders, very slick guy, very, accomplished technician, very awkward, but is the way he fights on the back foot, pitter-patter punches, is that actually going to be the way to unlock Golovkin? And do you know what? The more and more I watched that fight, I just felt like the way Golovkin cut down the ring on Brook, the way Golovkin was able to position Brook, and then, hit him inside the pocket, I just feel like maybe he'd do the same thing to Billy Joe Saunders. And funnily enough, and I hate to say this, the fighter who I actually now think may cause Golovkin possibly the most problem is actually Chris Eubank Jr. Because I don't think Golovkin would have as easy a time inflicting himself on Eubank Jr. on the inside than he did with Kell Brook and Billy Joe Saunders. Am I talking nonsense, Tom, or do you think there's some rationale behind it?
Well, I think Billy Joe. Yeah, I don't think either of them have much chance. Like when we went through you asked us some really annoying percentage questions there a couple of episodes ago, and when we did Billy Joe Saunders and Chris Eubank, I think I gave I can't remember now, but something for Billy Joe it was 8%, and Eubank I gave 9% or something like that. I think they're much of a muchness. I don't think that Billy Joe, even 8% is probably generous. I don't think you'll be able to outbox him over 12 rounds. It takes a truly exceptional boxer to put up with, that kind of ultimate pressure that GGG comes. I'm watching boxing a good long time now, and I'm trying to think in my time who would put on pressure like GGG at the high level. It's very hard to think of somebody who's done it as effectively. Did Hagler? I don't know if he did. I'm talking about the pressure. Hagler stood in the center of the ring a lot and true, but he just gets people to go reel them back to the ropes nearly without hitting them. If you watch that Kell Brook fight, when Kell got smashed in the first round, he looked like the fight was over after about 90 seconds. He managed to so quickly just have Kell Brook absolutely planted in the corner. And I don't know how much he hit him on the way in. He just basically, he's so effective with his footwork and stuff. So, I just think you have to be super elite boxer to be able to put up with that type of pressure. Maybe if you had a Floyd at 160, and actually not somebody with equivalent skill set at 160, they might be able to negate it. If Andre Ward was at 160, would I think he'd be able to negate Triple G? I don't know. And he's going
to need to be someone who puts him in, controls him up close, who outstrapes him, who puts him on his back foot. Or I just don't think. I think if you try and box him, I think he's so good at cutting you down and putting under pressure. I think you're going to have to go to war with him.
Yeah, I think it's just inevitable. Like you're going to get caught, even if you're like a supreme boxer. You're going to get caught, and like it might just take one smack in your chops, and that's it. Like Eubank has a hope, as in like if he can get inside. But you look at what he did to Lemieux, you know. And this myth of Eubank having a great chin, you know, it's a myth as now. You know, you might as well be. What's the equivalent? I don't know what the equivalent is. It's like saying Luke Campbell is a great chin, but he's been down. I don't know, like
Errol Spence is a great chin.
Do people say that? Do they?
No. But I'm just. You know.
Yeah, but at least Spence was wobbled once. Like we haven't. I suppose he was against Spike. Maybe he was a little bit wobbled, but you know, so we don't. You know, but I just think he'd make short change to Eubank as well. Just short change of him. I don't think there's a man out there at 160. The only person with a hope is Canelo, and I don't give him too much of a chance. But yeah, Billy going over there to get his money. And fair play to him. If he gets $3 or $4 million for that, $5 million, we'll see the first unified. When was the last time we had a champion in any division that had all 4 major belts, the IBO belt, the ring belt?
Yeah, I mean, he has shown complete, total and utter dominance of that division in, the only possible comparator I can think of is Vladimir Klitschko. But, yeah, probably even above and beyond that, to be honest, in terms of his dominance. I think it's kind of testament to Golovkin at this stage that, arguably Billy Joe Saunders versus Golovkin is, if not the top fight in the division, certainly the top 2 or 3 fight in the division. But still, it's not a fight that we even see as a competitive fight. And a lot of us are big Billy Joe fans, I guess.
Yeah, well, like put it into context. What percentage chance are we giving Johnny Jacobs in this fight?
6-7%.
And he's supposed to be the number 2 in the division if you listen to some American channels.
Yeah.
We're given the number 1 versus the number 2. It's like when is the last time you saw 1 versus 2 being 19-1 favorite?
Yeah. No, you're spot on. You're spot on. Okay, let's bring in one of the other guys. Let's bring in Jet first and foremost. Jet, Saunders, Golovkin. Will it happen? What will happen if it does happen?
I'm not sure at all, to be honest. 1 week, Frank saying, Billy Joe's got a massive fight. The next week, we're still waiting. The next week, we're still waiting. The next week, we're still waiting. And the next week, we get Josh Warrington versus Kiko Martinez. So anything's possible. Yeah, I mean, if the fight happens, then fair play. Good money for Saunders. But ultimately, is what Irish Tom says is correct. Is he really going to win the fight? What chance is everyone giving him? Even if he comes in the best shape of his career, you're not giving him much of a chance in this fight. He's not a big middleweight. He's not naturally a big puncher. He boxes on the back foot. He's very slick, very awkward. And I know you were saying he's probably one of the opponents that he could nick a round or 2 off Golovkin, but is he really going to win the fight on his back foot? Golovkin's going to walk through everything that he has, and Saunders is known to gas in the second half of fights. So, it's kind of a recipe for disaster for Billy Joe, to be honest. And I think all the people on this podcast are kind of fans of Billy Joe. So, yeah, I mean, if he's getting the money for it and he's investing wisely outside of boxing, then fair play to him. Let him take the fight, and he'll probably end up losing, but I guess we'll still support him anyway. But
are there other fights out there for him though, Jet? Because are there other fights out there for Billy Joe?
I mean, obviously Eubanks called him out again. Whether that fight will happen or not is another question. Yeah, let's put it that way. and then there aren't any other fights out there for him. That's the problem. I mean, if he wants to make however much he's making off per defense, you know, then so be it. I mean, you know, obviously he's going to have to pay his trainer, and I think we all know Adam Booth takes about 50% of the guy's wages, the fighter's wages. So if he's content with fighting, you know, the Kurzides, the Lemieux, the Stevens, you know, the guys who are below, so they're world level fighters, but they're not the elite fighters, they're not going to make him money, then so be it. Let him do that. But
Jet,
if he wants, yeah, go on.
Jet, there's no way to take 50%. That has to be wrong.
No, do you mean 15%, yeah?
50%. Adam Booth used to take 50% of David Hayes'
50
purse. Yeah, 50%. That was the. I don't know if it's true, but there's a lot of rumors that he used to take 50%.
I can't see that, mate.
I can't see that, mate. Yeah, maybe
that's
they
not
had
me saying. That's not me quoting, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe they had a co-promotional company between two of them, and they split the. It's funny.
I don't know, but yeah. Whatever. I've lost my place now. Thanks, Irish Tom. Move on. You can move on.
Welcome, Jet. Sorry about that.
You know,
I don't normally interrupt you. That's the thing.
Yeah, I know.
forever
Not
interrupting
thing, is it?
people, that fucker.
Watch it now.
It's Valentine's Day. It's got him all emotional. I'll let him off. It's Valentine's Day.
Out here, lads.
Billy Joe Saunders versus Golovkin, Paul. Any upset potential?
I mean, for me, that's the 1 and 2 in that division. Not Golovkin.
Jacobs.
You know, Jacobs. Yeah, I think. Having said that, though, sadly, no. I still don't think there's any chance of an upset there whatsoever. This is the problem, and for once, I've got to begrudgingly agree with Irish Tom. It's a cash out for Saunders. I mean, he's got no arse to go. I was thinking that at the start, when I started hearing this rumor, like, obviously he had said it in the interview, hadn't he? Like, somebody, and he's going to have to go to their backyard. I don't know what people think about the idea of it being in Kazakhstan. I think that's very weird. It's as far as I know, it's quite a poor country. It's not got a very large population either. I think, you know, I know fighters do like to have like homecoming fight, if you like, but I mean, Triple G hasn't fought out of the US in years. I mean, he's made his name in the US, so I would say that's unlikely. But yeah, I mean, Saunders is like you guys have said. There's nowhere for him to go. The thing I wonder about, I mean, like, I don't think anybody's going to beat Triple G at 160. He's just, and I agree. I don't think anybody does that sort of style better than him. I don't think I've ever seen anybody that does that better than him. Not only is his footwork really good, not only does he cut off the ring probably better than anybody in world boxing right now, his sort of like, he sets you up so well that he knows what you're going to do before you do it. And it can look like he's just got really good anticipation. The more I watch him, and Lomachenko does it as well. He's kind of constantly sort of like trying little things or sort of like feinting certain things to watch how the opponent reacts. And then you see like 10 seconds, 20 seconds afterwards, what he throws is based on how they react and stuff. Very, very clever fighters, man. And I just don't think anybody's going to touch Triple G at 160 whatsoever. It always makes me laugh when people say, "Oh, he's fought no one." Like, I know these guys are not big names at world level, but when you look at it, Lemieux, Monroe, Gill, Stevens, Martin Murray, Gabe Rosado, these guys at the time they fought Triple G were all top 10 middleweights. You know, so to say he hasn't fought anybody, no, actually, within the context of the middleweight division, he's fucking fought everybody. I question whether he is big enough at 168. That's when he may, somebody may cause him some problems. Somebody that's big and strong, that's really, really big and strong. I don't see anybody doing it at 160. Not at all.
Do you know what? Honestly, mate, I'm one of those people who possibly do question his resume, and I think the reason for that is because a lot of people have him as like pound for pound number one or something like that, and I just don't think you can have him that high with his resume. So since Golovkin's been a world champion, you've had the following names active at 160 pounds who've been considered top fighters. You've had Sergio Martinez, Canelo Alvarez, Miguel Cotto, Peter Quillen. And the fact of the matter is that through no fault of his own, Triple G hasn't fought any of those guys. And the best wins on his resume probably are, you're looking probably at like the Lemieux to Murray side of things. And don't get me wrong, I totally believe he's the number one middleweight. I'd pick him to beat every middleweight out there. I believe he is the dominant performer. But in the same way, I can't have, Guillermo Rigondeaux as pound for pound number one. I can't have Golovkin that high because I'm not saying it's any way his fault, but he's just yet to beat a truly elite name. So I think it's a difficult one, but I think if he beats Danny Jacobs and Billy Joe Saunders in 2017, that's probably his top two wins in my book. I don't know if you'd agree.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point, Tom. But I mean, if you think about it, like Jacobs iced Quillen.
True.
Cotto was never really a middleweight. Canelo Alvarez was a middleweight, but never really campaigned at 160 and was crying about the fact that he wasn't a middleweight, which is, given his latest move, it's quite clear what the reasons for him saying that were. So, yeah, your qualification that it's not his fault is definitely correct, because you can't. I think this Billy Joe Saunders fight will happen because I do think Triple G really wants to unify the division, and so I think they would have offered Saunders a good amount of money, and Saunders is just thinking, well, because Saunders isn't a big middleweight either.
No.
So I guess what's he thinking? Like, where do I go? If like Tom said, if Golovkin moves up, later this year or whatever, there's nobody there. Who's he going to fight? Lemieux is probably, I don't know, Lemieux. Who else? And none of them are big names. None of them are going to bring big sums in for him. None of them are going to bring in, put bums in seats, are they, in this country? So yeah, I think this is a kind of a bit of a desperate move. Do you guys think it'll happen in Kazakhstan?
I actually don't, and I think the reason it won't happen in Kazakhstan is because presumably they're going to have to pay Saunders a lot of money. And I'm not sure what the market is like in Kazakhstan for boxing. I think it's an unknown market. I mean, I'm unaware of a pay-per-view market in Kazakhstan. I'm unaware of them flogging 50,000 tickets in Kazakhstan. So I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up somewhere like Monaco or, somewhere like that. But I still find it hard to believe it'll be Kazakhstan.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I guess the only unknown is for the fact that Golovkin is probably the only major world sporting star that actually comes from Kazakhstan. I guess there's an unknown in that we don't know that he's not like God, like Pacquiao is in the Philippines. And maybe I think they could do it, but I kind of agree with you. I don't think without, I don't want to sound kind of like cruel here either, but it is a poor country.
Paul, they have it's got loads of golden oil and and gas and you know, it is a lot of billionaires from there. It's super unequal country. It's like, you know, Russia is. You got shitloads of super wealthy people and everybody else is dirt poor.
Oh yeah,
so,
but I mean, my point.
So all you need is like Brybinski. All you need is a billionaire to say, let's put it on. And I think that's what's happened. They have like a billionaire putting it on, and they'll pay the purses. You know, give them some good PR while they're fucking everybody over. So I think that's actually what's happening. But so, you know, I could easily see. Remember, where was the Rumble in the Jungle? Was held in the Congo.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, Tom, they've still got to put bums on seats, and there's no use putting 20 billionaires' asses on seats in a stadium, is there? You know what I mean?
No, they don't have to. Like, the thing is, you know, they're not going to. It's not like that. Whoever one of these billionaires is saying, "Oh, you know, I got to make money like Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, and I got to make it pay for the what you call it." For the people coming to see it and getting the, you know, £1,000 ringside tickets.
Yeah,
you know, it's not like that. You know, it's like, you remember, like Rumble in the Jungle was held in the Congo.
You know any of this, or are you making it up?
No, I heard it. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a billionaire going to bankroll it, and it's going to be in Kazakhstan. Like, and the thing is, Billy Joe Saunders against GGG in America wouldn't be pay-per-view. No. So it would just be like a HBO fight, and then like in England, it would probably be pay-per-view. So they'll probably have it at pay-per-view for the English audience.
Where do you anyway about the Kazakhstan billionaire?
There's loads of them. There's a lot of billionaires.
That he was bankrolling the Triple G Billy Joe Saunders fight.
I can't remember, Paul. I read it somewhere during the week.
Oh, did you? Oh, all
yeah.
Right.
But like, you know, I think that could be speculation. But you know, it's like Ryabinski or one of these guys. There's lots of billionaires there, and like, you know, you got a president for life, and I think his family are worth some crazy number of billions, so he might be putting it on.
Cool.
Fair enough. Paul, some other big news this week. Errol, Spence, Kell, Brook headed to the UK. How big a factor is this in the fight that is going to be in the UK?
I think it's a big factor. It's a big factor for Kell Brook, isn't it? I mean, do you know any idea where they're talking about putting it on?
Bramall Lane seems to be the suggestion, mate.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's got to be a huge advantage for Kell, isn't it? I'm just really happy that the fight's going to happen, you know. We can no longer really call Kell Brook a duck artist or Mr. Quack, you know. I wonder what Amir Khan. That was another thing I've seen on the, you know, you posted the question on Facebook about like topics and stuff. Somebody said, I wonder what Amir Khan's excuse will be now. Like he's got to fight is mandatory. Maybe his excuse will be he's got to fight in Vegas first before they'll fight him or whatever.
Yeah. How will Amir Khan next stop Kell Brook if Kell Brook beats Errol Spence? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a great fight. I mean, for me, that's probably the 1 and 2 in the division. To be honest, I think. I mean, obviously Spence is improving, but from the eye test, I think they're both better than Thurman and Garcia, and they've got to be the top 4 in the division. I just think they're both special fighters, and I think you know, I fancy Spence for this. I think Spence is the real deal, and I think, you know, the way he's taken care of business in his last couple of fights against guys that, you know, have shown a certain amount of resilience in other fights, just tells me that he is you know, he's the goods, and I think it's just going to be a great fight, absolutely great fight. Question marks over Kell though. Still, I wonder how well that eye socket has healed. You know, I think it's not optimal that it's his very next fight after that kind of like beating from Triple G. You know, will Kell Brook be the same fighter after that either? That's another question I've got. Just generally. So great fight. Really great fight. And I'm glad that it's going to be here. I might even try and see if I can get to it, actually.
Absolutely, yeah. It's certainly a big advantage for Kell Brook to have it here. Jet, let's bring you in. I don't know if you saw the video I posted, Jet, where the fight was announced. But in that video, I said that from my perspective, from a judging standpoint, I'd be more confident at the minute of Kell Brook getting a fair crack at it out in the States than I would be about Errol Spence getting a fair judging in the UK. Now, obviously, that's irrelevant if Errol Spence comes over and runs through Kell Brook in a few rounds, which I know a lot of people think he will do. But what's your perspective on the location for the fight?
Yeah, I think it definitely has some relevance in regards to the fight. I mean, you're probably spot on with that. I probably have to agree with you on that one. That, Kell Brook, if he goes over to the States, it'll probably be a fair sort of, shake. There's always that hometown advantage. And I think over the years, there's been some dodgy and dubious sort of decisions. This is assuming the fight does go the distance. And there's been some dodgy decisions, Ricky Burns. I think you were talking about Burns versus Beltran in that fight.
Burns, Beltran, and Burns, Relic,
Burns,
and
Relic.
Norris.
Yeah, I mean, there's been other fights as well, some dodgy decisions. Some people had I think the judges had Brook winning or something like that in one of the cards. I'm not sure, but there's been some weird decisions or weird cards over the years. And yeah, if I was a Errol Spence fan, I'd be a bit, skeptical. I'd be a bit apprehensive coming over to the UK. But I guess he's got his world title fight. He's got a big fight as well. Probably his biggest fight before this was the Chris Algieri fight. So yeah, or Leonard Bundu, but Algieri's a bit more of a name, I guess. So yeah, he's got a world title fight, and I guess probably him and his team are looking at it, and it's a winnable fight for Errol Spence. Kell Brook's coming down from probably 175, something like that, maybe a bit more. I know you saw him in person a few weeks ago, so if he's coming back down from that sort of weight, obviously he put on a lot of muscle as well for the Golovkin fight. So a lot's gonna kind of, I guess, hinge on Kell Brook, I guess, whether he wins the fight or doesn't win the fight. I think loads of people are saying, yeah, Errol Spence will kind of run through Kell Brook. But I think if Kell Brook comes in and he can make the weight correctly and he's not weight drained, then he definitely has a good chance in this fight. I'm not going to pick a winner just yet, but for me, it's a good fight. I think it's better than the Garcia Thurman fight. Maybe that's me just probably preferable because of it's a Brit is involved, but yeah, I'd say it's a better fight. Maybe not commercially for Kell, but definitely in terms of exposure, I guess he'll get some good exposure over in the UK. Whether he'll sell out at Bramwell Lane, that's another question. But yeah, definitely have to get rid of the sort of notion that he's ducking and that sort of stuff. Well done to Kell Brook, I guess.
I did think that the Bramwell Lane will be ambitious. I wonder if there might be empty seats there. So I don't know about Kell Brook's fan base. But we'll have to see. I guess that would be a big test. One thing I've got to disagree with you and Paul on, I see Garcia Thurman as definitely the number one fight in the division, quite clearly as well. I mean, why is it you reckon it's above that matchup?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's above. I mean, in terms of just pure excitement and the fight itself, I think it's a better fight. I think Garcia's kind of been very lackluster in his last few fights. I mean, he beat Ghost Guerrero. He beat Malignaggi, who was pretty short, and I expect Malignaggi to lose to Eggington actually as well in whenever the fight is. What's the other one? He hasn't been. I think since the Matisse fight, he's kind of been on a downhill spiral for me. Garcia, he has. I know he's one of these fighters that don't, they don't look great on the TV, but he probably has very good timing and accuracy. I think that's probably all that he has going for him, and you can't just win off that. He's quite slow on his feet. He doesn't really have any head movement or lateral body movement. I think everything that he does, probably Thurman does just as good, if not better. And I just don't see it as a 50-50. I think loads of people are saying, yeah, Garcia, Thurman. I think the fighters on IFL have been picking, either way. But for me, this is a Thurman win. It just has a Thurman win written all over it, to be honest, by decision. I don't think Thurman's a big puncher. I know his record suggests he's a big puncher and that sort of stuff, but I just don't think he's a big puncher. So, I think Errol Spence versus Brook has the potential to be a more exciting fight. Whether or not it's the 1 or 2, that's for other people to debate. But for me, it's just a better fight in terms of quality of the fight. That's my opinion, but yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, no, that's fair enough, mate. Let's bring Irish Tom in. Tom, when this fight was initially made, I believe the reaction was that Errol Spence would run through Kell Brook. I then believe there was a bit of a backlash from people saying, Errol Spence was completely untested, hadn't beaten anyone. Kell Brook would be a big favourite. And I kind of believe that the public opinion swung. And I now believe it's levelled off at about even. A few weeks ago on the podcast, we discussed that Errol Spence was available at something like 5-4, 13-10 with the bookmakers. That's completely gone. A number of the bookmakers now actually have Errol Spence as favourite. A lot of them have him odds on. A few of them still have him around the evens mark. So, this is clearly being seen as a very, very 50-50 fight. Tom, my question from a betting perspective is, surely now that the fight has been announced for the UK, you would presume the odds on Errol Spence would get a bit longer. The fact that they've gone shorter, does this suggest there's a huge public weighing in on Errol Spence to win?
I think he should be favoured, to be honest with you. I think, there's one thing I say about, people giving out about Errol Spence and saying that he's not all that. There are bets in boxing that come along about, a few times a year where you have an obviously potential to be elite facing the champion. We had one there and there's lots of money to be made on betting on these events. It's time when Terence Crawford came over to fight Ricky Burns, or when we saw what do you call the guy who did it to Pedraza? What was his name again?
Davis.
Yeah, Gervonta Davis. There are times when these people, and you know that they have it, and you just want to know, can they produce it? At the highest level, do they have the chin? Can they follow through? Like a Joshua against Klitschko. I think the odds on Joshua Klitschko are screwy, but I think I think Errol Spence is one of those fighters, and invariably those fighters when they have that fight, they invariably do come through and win. So I'm going to pick Errol Spence here. What exactly was your question, Tom? Why is it shifted?
Well, yeah. Why have the odds come in so notably that Errol Spence is now being viewed as a favourite when the fight's just been confirmed as in the UK? I mean, that's a huge change, surely.
Yeah, who knows? I think maybe some of it is that Kell Brook is a bigger name, and a lot of the bookmakers or the casuals don't know about him, and they just just think Brook's going to win, and then people just come in and say, "Oh, that's a great bet." I'm sure the bookies, maybe if it opened one price in England and opened a different price in America, the bookies change their odds. They don't want to get flooded with American money or to be exposing themselves. You might get a bookmaker, Paddy Powers or something. They priced Spence, I think, at 13 to 10.
Yeah, they've gone 4-5 now on Spence.
They've gone 4-5. They might have, the money can go, either the money can push it that way, or they can actually just reevaluate their price. They might just think, oh, look, the odds in America are completely different to what we have it, and we don't know as much about Spence maybe. So I think it's probably something like that. I think it's a great fight. I think I'm with Jed on this. I think it's a better fight than Thurman Garcia stylistically. I hope Kell Brook is not allowed to hug his way around that ring, which I expect he will be. Errol Spence, I watched one of his fights again last night, the one where he got caught in the last round. I think it was, or the second last round. It was against the African fella. I forget his name. Anybody watch that one? It was like a couple of years ago.
Bundu. Oh.
It began with an L. I don't know.
I'm sure someone will put it in the chat in a second.
Yeah, Larty. Yeah, somebody Delboy has it there. Larty. Or Larty or whatever. So like, and I think that he showed some like kind of brutishness on the inside. Like when Larty was trying to hold, he put his forearms up into his face, and really was rough with him on the inside. And I think he'll have to do that with Kell Brook. But I think I'm going with Spence in this one. I have a great idea. I have a great thought though for all the people out there that find Eddie Hearn very smug like I do. Kell gets beaten. Tony Bellew gets smashed up by Hay. Klitschko knocks out Joshua. Linares beats Crolla. Takes out Ricky Burns. I'm telling you, that's actually not that unlikely.
That's a very possible accumulator.
Seriously, isn't it?
Yeah.
The only unlikely one there is Ndongo.
Yeah.
I would just that's probably the most unlikely one. But I don't know. So I'm getting very excited. I must say, lads, that I am really excited for this fight. So it's a great fight. All of a sudden, Eddie Hearn is spoiling us by accident. We're getting two very good fights. Two of the best fights in boxing so far. Well, like that are this year that are planned will be in the UK. So we're lucky we're getting these fights. It's very rare you get actually the best fights in Britain. It's really genuinely very rare. It's about once every 5 years you get one of the best fights in boxing. Like it's Calzaghe versus Kessler. Is it the last top fight? It probably is. Calzaghe, Kessler, and who was it before then? I'm trying to remember. Maybe Kostitsu versus Ricky Hatton. You're talking about those two fights happened in about 10 years. How long is it since those fights? Ricky Hatton one's probably 2004 or
yeah, that's like 15
that.
years ago or something. Ricky Hatton, isn't it?
Yeah.
About 12. Is it 2004? So like 12 years. You basically have had two top championship fights in about 12 years. So we're getting two in the space of a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. So it's really good. I think it's just a great fight. And do you know what, lads? I'm after changing my mind on that Joshua fight. Huh?
You think Spencer's got to go for the knockout?
I think he'll beat him up.
Okay.
I think he'll beat him up. I don't know if he'll knock him out, but I think he'll up. And he might
Eddie might have his envelopes out for a few of them fights at least, though. Hey.
You're fucking sure he's got the envelope out, but the thing is, Spence is backed by one of the biggest promoters in the world, so they'll have some envelopes out as well. You're not fighting in Dongo here. You can't, or fucking Beltran or someone. It's much harder to rob one of the top prospects in the world. Like when Terence Crawford came over on a top rank, backing him, he didn't get any bad cards on that bill. In and around all the desperate cards that Ricky Burns got, there was no fucking around there with Eddie because there's money on the far side of it. So I think he'll try his best, don't you know it? But I think I think Errol is going to. I think he is the truth. So the only thing is, I do think that he is a bit susceptible. I don't think he's defensively that great, but he's one of these guys who's just so aggressive, and such a big guy at the weight. So I'm looking forward to a great fight. The other thing I was going to say is that the Joshua fight, I think I've switched back. I think I'm going for Klitschko now. So that's a good sign of a good fight, though, isn't it?
Yeah, the back and forth.
Another thing, Tom, Errol Spence not doing VADA testing, suspect or no?
Definitely. Well, I think he's juicing.
Very
so,
dodgy, mate.
Very dodgy, my opinions on it. Yeah. So, like, I wonder, is that in the contract?
Someone was saying something about Errol Spence having gynecomastia or something. Did anybody hear that?
What's that mean?
It's some kind of condition where you get basically bitch tits. It's an overproduction of some kind of fucking chemical.
Yeah. People are saying you can get it from steroid abuse. You get big nipples or something.
Yeah.
But like, I've seen the pictures. I can't see anything, to be honest with you. But I think he's juicing. And did anybody hear your man? It was Michael Phelps, is it? Got caught. He's taken some, not got caught, but he's taken some stuff for epilepsy. Anybody see that?
No.
Swimmer. So coming out, he's taking like anti-epilepsy drugs for some reason. Yeah, like basically it's another type of steroid. When I saw it first, I was like, Michelle Phelps is taking fucking epilepsy stuff. I was like, why are people drug testing Michelle Phelps? Is it because our knockers are so big?
Let me whip round the panel. I've got one question here, and I kind of just want a yes or a no answer on this one. We'll start with you, Jet. Is this a pay-per-view worthy fight?
Oh.
Bearing in mind, you said that it was better than Garcia Furman.
Well, do you know what? That's such a hard one. Because Errol Spence is an unknown quantity. I mean, GGG, even he was some sort of known quantity. So it's tough. On the balance of things, no. But should it be a pay-per-view fight? Probably yes.
It will definitely be pay-per-view, won't it, Jet?
I'm not sure. They haven't said anything about pay-per-view because
No,
I know.
I appreciate it hasn't been announced, but I mean, I would assume we're 100% looking at a pay-per-view here,
But
given
you think
pay-per-view and Chavez was Diego Chavez was a pay-per-view.
Yeah, they're going to have pay-per-view.
I don't know, but think about it. They have the Hey Bellew is in March pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Klitschko Joshua in April pay-per-view. Will they be doing another one? Brook versus GGG. Sorry, Brook versus Spence even, sorry. In May. That's 3 pay-per-views in a row. So, I don't know. I'm not sure. You got to look at it from, another perspective. I think that will Sky actually sanction it or Eddie Hearn actually attempt to put it on? It'll make them more money, I guess, if they do pay-per-view. But I'm not sure if they will actually do it. But, yeah, I guess we'll wait and see.
Well,
I mean, I'd have
determined
100% it'll be pay-per-view, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised.
I know what you mean. Prize Jet, if they try and put it back 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think they might put it in June or something like that.
Yeah.
Because if Bramwell Lane, obviously, is football stadium. If I don't know where Sheffield United are in the table, but if they get in the playoffs or something like that, the playoffs run until the end of March anyway. So they might put. It's very possible. Yeah, it's very possible they might put it into June and make a pay-per-view then. But if it's in May, I think in May they may just put it on regular Sky or something like that. But I'm not sure. It's
Gossip.
Tom.
Gossip. Why do you want? Yeah, why do you think you think the number one fight is the other one, Danny Garcia versus
Yeah,
Thurman?
yeah.
That's on free-to-air TV. So why the fuck should this one?
What I'm saying, I think 100% it will be pay-per-view. I cannot see it not being pay-per-view given the way boxing is at present. Is what I'm getting at.
I know, but your question is, should it be pay-per-view? None of these fights should be pay-per-view. You know what I mean? No, I don't understand why a boxer should earn so much money that they never have to work again in their life, or they earn so much money that they earn $100 million. Why should sportsmen get paid so much money? Why do we think they should be able to retire and not work for 50 years?
Well, it's a supply and demand thing, isn't it? If someone is prepared to pay $50 million for a painting that you've drawn, then that's what the market is saying. If the British market will support 500,000 pay-per-view buys for a fight, then that's the demand, and Kell Brook is providing the supply. It's nothing more complex than that, as I see it. And if I was a boxer, getting punched in the face
it's a lot more complex than that.
I would definitely want the money.
but you're talking about like what the boxer wants, and we're talking about what the fan wants and what's good for the sport. Like we should be like, we shouldn't be saying any fight is pay-per-view, really. You know, like the thing is, you know, nearly every other sport going doesn't have pay-per-view to it. You know, you might have to pay for your sports channel, and even that's a new development, but you don't have to pay extra on top for, say, a particular Champions League match when you have BT or whatever thing you have. You know, football, NFL is the biggest sport in America. It's free to air. So is basketball. So is hockey. Soccer is free to air here. In Ireland, most of the Gaelic games are free to air. Horse racing is generally free to air. You know, nearly every sport is generally free to air. And if you are paying for it, you don't have to pay pay-per-view for the things. So, like, this whole thing about should a fight be pay-per-view, you know, I just, you know, I don't know why fans allowed to say, oh, this is great, yeah, another great pay-per-view, or happy to see, I'm happy to pay the pay-per-view for a thing. It's what kills the sport. Just what kills the sport.
Yeah, I just don't see it that way. I don't think these fights would have been made. Maybe Spence Brook would have been made, but I don't think Klitschko Joshua would have been made. I think that, if I'm honest, the British boxing schedule is pretty damn good this year. And I think a large reason behind that is the success of the pay-per-view market in the last year or two, from my perspective.
How can Nigel Benn and Gerald McClellan get made on ITV1?
It's a different era.
Brook Spence.
It's a very different era. You know, this is when, I don't know what the stats were, but how many people tuned in and watched that fight live. It's just a different, it's not really comparing like for like.
Yeah, but like you have a, like, say, an equivalent event, a big sporting event on ITV or BBC now. They get the same viewing figures. An England football match then versus an England football match now. They get the same viewing figures. You know. You know, I just think that, you know, fighters feel like they should get paid unbelievable amounts. You know, and I think that fans are suckers for paying for it. And I think the best thing that'll ever happen to boxing, look, the best thing that's happened to boxing in the last 20 years is the PBC with all its flaws. It's the best thing that's happened to boxing. It's getting prime time boxing events on. You know, we are lucky we get an odd one here and there on ITV and an odd one on Channel 5. But, you know, that's what that they get, or Dave, you get 3 million watching. Like 3 million watching Dave. You know, that shows you the, you know, the power of it. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's fair enough. Paul, did you just want to get in on that one, mate? So I'm conscious we didn't properly go to you there, but do you have a take on it?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, mate. I mean, like what dictates whether it's kind of like is it right, is it wrong, is like what does the market support? It's like well, like Tom, don't jump straight in, mate.
Sorry, Paul. Sorry.
I'm like
sorry.
Like I wanted to buy this Martin guitar, right? And it's like 50, 60 years old, and like I've got acoustic guitars here that are in way better condition. It's a beat up old fucking thing. It was like 20 odd grand they wanted for this guitar. But that's because there are people that say that's like one of the best guitars you can get and will pay that money for it. And so because there is a market that says that is worth that money, it is. And there's no use me saying, oh, well, do you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's not in as good condition as my Yamaha, because like, it just doesn't work that way. And it's the same with this. I mean, like, the sport generates a certain amount of money, and who should get it if not the fighters? So I'm kind of like, and as well as that, I think boxing is a sport that there is a huge amount of risk to the fighter, not just for the one-offs like Nick Blackwell, Gerald McClellan, Michael Watson, which really on the scheme of things aren't that, you know, like rare. But, you know, look at somebody like James Toney now. You can't understand a word he says. There's a lot of sort of like damage that happens to people that mean they can't do a lot else after they retire. So, you know, I think it's right that they get a decent amount of money. And at the end of the day, whether it's right or wrong, the market supports it. Brook Spence is definitely pay-per-view. It definitely will be pay-per-view. And on the scheme of things, the way things are at the minute, yeah, it's justifiably pay-per-view. And it's like, you know, obviously the pay-per-view market works because people pay the pay-per-view fee. If they didn't, then no, it wouldn't be pay-per-view. Do you know what I mean? That's how I see it. I just think, is it ideal? No. I wish boxing was in a place it was in, you know, when Eubank and Nigel Benn and that were at their heights. We used to get it on ITV. That was great. It was a great era. I loved. That was when I started watching boxing. Was just before that. Was like Barry McGuigan, and then watching Naz come up and Eubank and stuff like that. It was a great era for boxing, but it's just not the era we're in now. And the era.
Can I interrupt, Paul? Or
indeed, yeah. Thanks for letting me speak, mate.
Sorry, Paul. I'm not trying to annoy you all the time. We're just trying to talk like a conversation. Jesus, relax. Now, here, you know, we were talking about the market and all that, but like the market is like, you know, if you want to get technical about these things, it's about, you know, you talk about the structures of how these markets are set up. Look, you can make the same. Argument about should people pay money to send their kids to primary schools, and you know, you can make that, oh well, can the market support it? But you know, the society comes together and says, as a right, everybody should have free education up to the secondary level and to third level in a lot of countries. So you know, you got the market on one side, and you got society and how you govern things. And similarly, when it comes to sports,
education is just a fundamental thing that everybody needs. It's the root of everything. You can't compare that to entertainment.
Well, Paul, okay, but Paul, go back 200 years and it didn't exist. Go to Africa today. Go to Uganda and see if you have to pay for your primary education. Lots of places in the world don't have it, right? So in that case, you've got a market governing the thing. And what I'm trying to say, you know, to say a simple thing like, you know, the market determines how the thing is, that, you know, actually it's more complex than that. And usually it's to do with structures and power relations and stuff like that. So, you know, the fact that boxing is getting screwed here, boxing as a sport gets screwed by pay-per-views, is, you know, it's a function of how as a sport it evolves and the power relations involved there. Because
how does boxing get screwed? Who?
Well, boxing gets screwed basically by the stars. You got a guy like Muhammad Ali or Floyd or Tyson, and what happens is they get the vast majority of all the revenue in the sport, and all the rest of the sport get screwed. Because they're big, those big draws and everything end up going pay-per-view. And what happens is that, you know, the big standout events that drive and keep the sport being popular, like the Champions League final, the World Cup final, these type of things, they're off on pay-per-view where no one gets to see them. So the next young guys coming up who put the same effort in and have the same skills and all that, they don't get the same exposure as they would have had got. So you've got guys who have positions of power within the sport, like stars or promoters, and they siphon the cash and they determine, based on how much money they as individuals will make, what will happen to the sport. And it's, you know, and you know, they control the market, and you know, they control the structure of the market. You know, so like
I don't agree, mate. Because if Floyd Mayweather goes for a meeting with I don't know, another promoter for a fight, those negotiations are going to involve that other fighter getting a decent amount of money as well. Is he going to get as much as Floyd Mayweather? No, but he's still going to get a decent amount of money.
No, but the whole sport, and not just talking about the two guys in that. You know, Maidana is doing well for himself if he gets 5 or 10 million to fight Floyd. But you're talking about all the rest of the sport as a whole. Look, you look in the UK, for example. There's legislation on by the government, right? There's laws in place that certain sporting events have to be on television, free to air, right? There's like the boat race there's the Grand National, there's like soccer matches, you know, England football matches. There's certain events that have to be on free-to-air television. Like that, you know, so there we see that the market's not determining that, you know. So to say it's just as simple as the market, I think is not true. But, you know, anyway, I think I've talked enough.
Yeah, but I think from a fighter's perspective, I mean, earlier on you were making the point that, you know, who says a fighter needs to be able to retire? The way I look at it is like this. If you were working behind a checkout at Tesco's and you were earning 50 quid a day and you were really, really happy with that wage, but then you found out your mate was doing the same job at Sainsbury's and was earning £100, you'd suddenly be very unhappy with your wage. If you then went to your manager and said, I want a pay rise from 50 quid to 100 quid, and they turned around to you and said, you're not worth 100 quid to me. Well, the debate is, you may not be worth 100 quid in that manager's mind, but are you actually worth 100 quid if Sainsbury's will pay you it round the corner? And I suggest, yeah, you probably are, if that's what the market is offering. And I kind of think for these fighters, the Kell Brooks of this world, you know, he's a guy who probably hasn't earned the big bucks in the past. Obviously, he did against Golovkin, but I'm saying prior to that. And, you know, he's seeing these other comparable names in his division, you know, guys like Amir Khan, and, you know, he's aspiring for that sort of level. And I kind of think that, you know, the sort of the market is there to support that wage. You know, that's my take on it. But we're probably going around here, aren't we?
The market is structured in such a way that Kell can be pay-per-view and earn a lot of money. You know, the fact that there is a market there, for example, you know, and in the way it's designed is a function of many things. You know, the fact that you've got many channels, that you've got satellite, that you've got pay-per-view, that you got capitalism, that it's got lots of things. Look, say in Ireland, you've got hurling and Gaelic football and hurling. I don't know if people know about it, right? Two amateur sports. Guys going out playing hurling, getting hit in the fucking head with a hurley, getting their brains bashed in, going into work the next morning. Like, these guys that are, you know, doing that in an amateur sport and are, you know, legends and whatever, what it can, they don't get any money out of things, say. They can end up getting fingers broken, arms and elbows and knees and everything smashed in, occasionally lose an eye, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's dangerous. Not as dangerous, say, as boxing is, but it's pretty fucking dangerous. But, like, you know, when the lads play for their county or they play for their local team, they don't, you know, what is it? Why is it different for a sport like that they should say, oh, I want to be able to retire and have a fucking Bugatti? You know, it's just that, you know,
probably because
I don't like
support that. You know, I don't know much about the sport, but I imagine there isn't the money there to fund Bugattis. But there is in boxing.
There always only is at the very, very top. There's only one person, two people in the world, and they end up getting the vast majority of the revenue, or, you know, a hugely disproportionate amount of the revenue for the work that they put in versus all the other boxers. You know, all these other boxers put in huge amounts of work in the gym, similar to those guys. It's not like Floyd puts in 7 times the amount of work, or 28 times the amount of work, or 100 times the amount of gym work as the fellas he's fighting. It just doesn't. But it's structured so that he'll get all the money. You know, I'm just saying the pay-per-view is bad for the sports, and I'll talk about this all day, and I'll disagree with you all, and then I'll interrupt Paul, and then he'll give out to me, and then we'll have a scrap.
Let's.
Jet will have.
We'll move it on.
Jet will have hung up.
Jet's still hanging on. He's been brave. We'll go to Jet next. In fact, the next topic I wanted to introduce, quite a farcical one actually. Purse bids last week for the WBA Heavyweight Championship of the regular world, and it was a fight between two of the oldest guys. I mean, I wonder if their combined age would be the oldest heavyweight title fight. Who knows? Oquendo and Shannon Briggs. Now, the WBA have this bizarre ruling that the minimum purse bid for a world heavyweight title fight is $1 million. You'd think if you wanted to have that rule, you probably wouldn't order world title fights between the likes of Shannon Briggs and Oquendo. But there was only one bid at the purse bids, and that was a bid of $400,000, which the WBA ruled completely invalid. as it didn't hit the minimum standard. And as such, this fight, which has been on the cards for ages, is still not booked. So it's going back to a second purse bid. But no one's going to pay $1 million to see these two pensioners go at it, surely. Farcical from my perspective. What do you think is going to happen here?
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, pretty embarrassing. They'll probably go to another purse bid, and will someone pay £1 million? No, but someone will have to cough up the money, or the WBA are going to have to, reduce that amount to maybe something a bit more respectable for the promoters and that sort of stuff who wants to stage it, because £1 million for these guys to go at it is pretty awful. I mean, put aside Shannon Briggs and his sort of let's go champ persona and that sort of stuff, he doesn't really offer too much in the ring, these days. And Oquendo, well, yeah, let's not talk about him. He's been out for 2 years, I think, with the same injury that he probably should have recovered, at least 1.5 years ago or something like that. So, yeah, I'm not really too fussed if a fight gets made or not. It's not really of any interest. The real fight for that belt is Klitschko Joshua. So, yeah, maybe Hay will swoop in if this kind of contract saga and negotiation saga continues, if and when he probably beats Bellew after. So, yeah.
And sticking with the heavyweights, Jet, and Mikey mentioned it in the chat, it was our next topic. For the vacant British title that Dillian Whyte has vacated, Sexton versus Cornish, Sam Sexton versus Gary Cornish. Truly a horrendous fight, and whoever wins, truly a horrendous British champion. You think with the depth of talent we have in the British heavyweight scene, I know a lot of our fighters maybe perhaps are above British title level, but some of the names out there, surely the likes of Dave Allen, Nathan Gorman, Ian Lewison, surely they could have, Derek Chisora, they could have come up with a better fight than versus Sexton. I mean, surely you could pick 10 guys to beat either of them.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted about that the other day, and I said Cornish versus Lamb Sexton. That's kind of in my head now because of Dillian Whyte. But I couldn't believe it when it was ordered. It was farcical, embarrassing. Some superlatives don't describe situations, and I think this is one of those situations. It's terrible. I mean, that British champion has to go down as one of the worst British champions, British heavyweight champions in recent history. Dave Allen, I think, beats both of them quite handily. Nathan Gorman as well. You could even say someone like a Dominic Akinlade or someone like that. I know he got beaten on the weekend, but he'd give them a fair few problems. Gary Cornish is horrendous. I think I could step into the ring and beat him. I think he's that bad. He is awful. And Sexton, he just has a barrage of losses on his record to, okay, at the time, obviously, it wasn't that bad a loss. David Price, but David Price is, even David Price could beat both of these guys, even at his sort of struggling advance at this stage in his career. But yeah, just, as I said, some words don't describe the situation. And I think it's better my mother always told me, when you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. So I won't say anything more.
Who's going to win?
Oh, I hope someone comes. I hope the ref wins. Knocks them both out. It's pretty.
Do you know what? I was thinking about this. What is the best win that they have between them? I mean, is it Larry Olubamaro?
Wasn't he on the juice or something like that as well?
Yeah, Olubamaro. I mean, how has this happened? Has Cornish got knocked out by Anthony Joshua, has fought 2 guys with a losing record, and then he's been in the spot. Sexton's been inactive for years, and every time he stepped up, Chisora, Price, he's been battered. I mean, for what it's worth, I think Sexton will beat Gary Cornish because what happened to, Gary Cornish's chin is very, very bad. Unreliable.
I mean, there's so many guys out there. I don't know why the board turned down, Dave Allen versus Dillian Whyte as a British British heavyweight title fight. They've got to look at themselves in the mirror and go, you know, this is awful. This is one of the worst decisions they've ever made. This is terrible. I mean, you know, I would say Derek Chisora, but I don't know if you guys heard. Derek Chisora is obviously he's calling out Dillian White again, and he's saying Dillian White's ducking him, and he doesn't think he wants a world title fight. He just thinks he wants to move on from the Derek fight, and Derek might want to face Robert Helenius in a rematch in Finland. So obviously he's kind of off the radar. I know he's above British level, probably just about, but this is horrendous. I don't understand this whatsoever. Like,
it's
bizarre.
Really, really bad. And I don't know which promoter's going to bid for this. I mean, this is a fight that sort of won't, you know, it's not going to end up on a big bill because, I mean, there's just going to be legitimately no interest. And Mikey makes another good point in the chat. Dave Allen has the better win with Gavern. Yeah, Dave Allen's got 2 or 3 wins. I mean, his win over Oriang as well is superior to anything on either of these guys' resumes. Yet they turned down Allen versus White. So why they've done that and then made this fight, it kind of really lacks some consistency. But we'll have to see if this fight even happens because the promoters putting up real money to make this fight happen. I mean, this is like a York Hall undercard fight, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, the thing is, I think it will happen, but because there won't be enough backlash, if you understand what I mean. I mean, the fight will get made. Obviously, you know, it's been ordered, and you know, whether or not promoters actually bid for it, whatnot, and it goes to a purse bid, that's another question within itself. But there's no backlash towards it because there's no interest in it. If you understand what I mean, because there's no interest, people aren't going to go, oh well, this is ridiculous. You know, they're not going to have a go at the board for it, but they should. Like, you know, all of us boxing fans, you know, people in the chat, we should have a go at it because this is embarrassing. The British title is a prestigious title, and you know, to have Gary Cornish and Lamb Sexton fighting for it, that you couldn't find 2 worse guys in the heavyweight division, or at least in the British heavyweight division. To fight for it.
We'll run through them both when he's ready, I guess. He's a very talented fighter. Just to keep the physical nature going, just out of interest, did you know that the Briggs Oquendo winner has a mandatory challenger who they have to face straight away?
Yes, I heard something about that. Yeah, I did hear. I think they were campaigning to actually fight the Klitschko Joshua winner.
No.
Yeah.
Alexander.
Is it Ustinov? Yeah, it's Ustinov, isn't it? Yeah.
Ustinov, yeah.
That's even worse. That's even worse. That's just
even worse, right? Yeah.
Well, to be fair, Cornish versus Sexton is bad, but this is a very close. I mean, Briggs versus Oquendo, and how he still has the moniker Fast Frez. You might as well say OAP Frez. God,
yeah. I'll tell you what, Daniel put something good in the chat, actually. Daniel put, Joe Joyce could turn pro and beat Gary Cornish for the British title in his first fight. Not impossible.
Mate, I think Bellew could beat him. I'll be honest. I think Bellew could spark him. And Bellew's a fat cruiserweight. And that's just me being like totally honest. I'm not digging at him or anything. He's out of shape at cruiser. And at heavy, he's going to be way more out of shape against David Haye. He would absolutely destroy Gary Cornish or Sexton, for that matter. So that I think that puts it. That says it all. You know, I think that says it all. But yeah,
Totally agree. Paul, Iris, either of you guys want to get in on some of this heavyweight ranting?
Well,
No.
Did you say no?
Was that a no, Paul? Sorry?
That was a no from me.
No from Tom. Sorry, over to you, Paul.
It's a no from him, and it's a no from him. Well, it's just awful, isn't it? I mean, like Briggs is what, 50 now? I know, he's like 45 or whatever.
Yeah, 44, I think, something like that. Yeah,
I think he might be 40. I think he might be 45. But I mean, like,
let me check.
I remember seeing him against Zumbano Love. About 2 years ago. He won a UD, and it was just I really struggled to fucking sit through it. I normally you guys know I love my boxing. I can normally sit through any boxing, and this was a real struggle to sit through. Yeah, he's knocked out a few bin men since that. Wow. That entitles him to a world title. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, like, the governing bodies just seem to. I mean, like, this guy that Eubank Jr. beat at the weekend. Do you know Daniel Gill was coming off 2 losses when he fought the guy Eubank beat, Quinlan? Yeah, when that Quinlan fight happened. Gill had 2 losses directly before that. Who has 2 losses and then gets a world title shot, even if it is like a bullshit title? Do you know what I mean? I don't understand the way they sort of operate these governing bodies. It was like when Tyson Fury won the title and they stripped him, the IBF stripped him fucking 2 weeks later or whatever. And then Charles Martin wins the title and they say, well, we're going to give him a year to enjoy it. Like, they're so inconsistent in the way they operate and in the way they treat people. It's baffling. Lamb Sexton versus
Cornish
is just fucking god awful. Like, God,
mate, I reckon you could have a better fight in the pub. I'll be honest. You can find a better fight in the pub, or between 2 army guys. I know you're a former army, or navy guy yourself. You can probably find a better fight there.
I've seen better fights. I'm telling you, I've seen better fights in pubs.
This is a joke. I can't believe this. You're right as well. Shannon Briggs, he just turned 45, I think, in December. So 45, and he's 47th on BoxRec, and he's the 13th best American heavyweight. That is bad.
But I mean, that's got to be embarrassing that they can't, that the purse bids were like half of what their minimum is. I mean, that's so fucking embarrassing.
Embarrassing,
After all his like trumpeting and let's go champ and everything, and his interviews on Box Nation and what, like, I've brought myself up from depression and whatnot. He kind of like, he's now like. I don't know. Do you guys reckon that fight will go ahead? I mean, what will happen? They'll have to raise $1 million.
First bids, but I can't see anyone bidding $1 million for it. Really can't.
I mean, the only way is if Briggs tries to sort of like call in some kind of favours from people he might know. He's been around a long time, hasn't he? And sort of say, I'll really go at it for hyping up the pre-fight or whatever. I don't know, man. It's like, God, what a sad state of affairs, man.
It really is. Yeah, it's hard for a promoter to put up $1 million to invest in Briggs, because even if he wins, and to be fair, it's no certainty he beats Oquendo. But even if he wins, then his next fight's against Ustinov. So you can't exactly make a profitable fight out of that either, because that'll probably be $1 million minimum. So yeah, it's hard. But anyway, let's move it on to discuss next week's boxing. And there's a few fights next weekend. You've got Broner versus Granados. Interesting there that despite Adrian Broner physically looking in very good shape, the weight class has changed to 147 pounds rather than the initially agreed 142 pounds. I myself have always thought Broner, one of the most talented fighters in the game, not someone who's going to be successful at that weight class. Just believe he's too small. You've also got David Evanesian versus Lamont Peterson. You've got Gary Russell Jr. in action and Jamel Charlo. So let's start by going over to Iris Tom as we look ahead to next week's boxing. So Iris, what in particular are you got your eye out for this weekend?
Nothing really. I got to disagree with you though. I don't think Broner has a huge amount of talent. All he ever did is beat up midgets, and he got beat half the time. Ponce de Leon, I thought, won that fight pretty certain that I thought he won that fight. And once he started fighting fellas that are anywhere near his own size, he start getting his arse handed to him. I think he's won four world championships at 4 weights of people that, the worst. He must be the worst 4-weight world champion of all time. So Broner is a joke. Can't stand Broner. And I don't even think he's good to watch. Who else is then the other ones, not so much. Who's it? Anavasian against
Lamont Peterson.
Yeah, okay. I'll probably watch that one. Yeah. Lamont Peterson, God, he's been gone a long time. Who else? Yeah, you also forgot Roy Jones Jr. is fighting.
Of course, yeah, Bobby Gunn, right?
Oh God.
The IBO Cruiserweight Championship, is it? What is it?
Oh, I don't think it's the IBO. It's one.
I'm gonna look it up.
So that's like the top fight of the weekend. Roy Jones is 1-20 on. That's the best price.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy he's fighting is bare knuckle. Yeah.
Yeah, he used to be a boxer too. I think he might have been cruiserweight world champion at one stage.
Oh really? Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, Bobby Gunn.
Bobby Gunn. Yeah, I know he's very friendly with the Furies, isn't he?
Yeah. So let's see here. Yeah.
Russell Jr. Do you know his opponent?
Yeah, he's fighting Oscar Iskandon, I think.
Okay.
Iskandon's the WBC interim champion or silver champion. So obviously when Gary Russell wasn't fighting, he was the sort of the interim champion if Gary Russell couldn't come back and make weight, whatnot. So he's an okay fighter, but he's not on Gary Russell's level. Let's put it that way. I don't know what's happening with boxing. It's been a bit dodgy.
What about Jamel Charlo? He's still scheduled to fight this week, is he?
Yeah, he's. I don't know if it's this week or next week. I think it's next week.
Is it?
Yeah, against Charles Hatley. Hatley, he's a decent operator, but Charlo for me, his brother is really good. I really rate his brother, Jamal, the IBF champ. He looks qualitier, to be fair. But this one, he's not all that. I think he got very lucky to get a decision here. I think he got a very dubious decision against Varnes for the sort of. I think it was for the title, or if it was for a final eliminator, but he got a very dodgy decision there. And yeah, it was for the final eliminator. Sorry. So I don't really rate him. I think when he comes up, I think if Kell Brook moves up to 154, I think Kell Brook could beat him. I'll be honest. He's the weakest of the champions. Jack Cole say he holds a regular belt, but that doesn't really count. I know he's fighting Demetrius and Andrade, and I expect Andrade to beat him. So yeah, Charlo, he probably win against Hatley, but he didn't look good against John Jackson. I don't know if you guys saw that. That was when he won the title. I think he was losing to John Jackson throughout the whole fight. I think he got really dominated. He only won one round on my scorecard. So yeah, I guess we'll wait and see until next week. It's if he's the real deal or not.
What about Broner Granados, Jet? Firstly, do you agree with me on the weight class? And secondly, how do you think that fight will break down style-wise?
I mean, Granados is a sort of pressure fighter. If you look at his fight against Amir Imam, he obviously knocked out Imam, and Imam was quite a highly touted prospect. He brought the pressure. He really came in hard body shots. Going to the head, changing it up, mixing it up. I think he's not a sort of educated pressure fighter. He'll come forward. He'll come in sort of, not straight lines. He will come in at awkward angles. He reminds me a bit of Maidana, but not as cultured or not as hard a puncher or anything like that. He's small for light welterweight or super lightweight. So I don't know how he's really going to cope with Broner. I know Broner, obviously, in one of his, in his fight against Ashley Theophane, he came in at around 170. So he's going to be substantially the bigger man in terms of just weight. I think he'll probably be a bit taller as well. Granados isn't a big 140 guy, as I said. So I don't know how he's going to cope with, the 147 sort of, just a naturally bigger man, kind of maybe pushing him around. I know Broner will fight on the back foot, but if he wants to come in close and just kind of rough him up a bit, I think he can do that because Granados isn't the biggest guy. So Yeah, I mean, Broner, I think it's kind of done and dusted. He's not going to fight at 140 again. I just think physically he's probably. I don't know if it's him not, making weight correctly, but physically it looks like he can't make 140. So if he wants to fight at 147, then yeah, I guess it's not the. I guess it's not the end of the world, but he has to cope with not being the biggest guy. Sorry, a big guy in there. I guess that's the main thing. He's not going to be a unit at 147 like he was at 140.
Yeah, and he's kind of struggled with that the two times he's had a loss to his.
Maidana, and I think against even Paulie Malignaggi, I think he struggled in that fight. I don't know if it was at 147, but the guy. I think the top guys he faces, he does struggle. He Sean Porter as well. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. But the guys out obviously at 147, they're kind of the top guys. They're tied up. Pacquiao is supposedly fighting Horn in the UAE. Kell Brook versus Spence. Sorry, Amir Khan's probably the only guy that's open at the moment, but he's openly said he wants a warm-up fight. So yeah, there's not really many options for Broner if he wants to get a version of a world title or be ranked high in the sort of the Ring magazine or the sanctioning bodies.
What about Lamont Peterson at Venetian? I was surprised to see Venetian such a strong favourite.
Yeah, it's kind of the same with Lamont Peterson. I think he's not. Do you know what? He's a weird fighter because he's not technically great, and when he brawls, he's not exactly huge. And for 140, he's not a big fighter either. To be fair, I think at 147, he's certainly not a big fighter. I think the Garcia fight was at a catch weight, if I'm correct, non-title fight, and also the Felix Diaz fight. I'm not sure if that was at welterweight, but he's not a big guy at the weight. If you look at the size difference when Amir Khan fought him, Amir Khan was a substantially bigger man. And I just think Lamont Peterson, he's not bad, but, again, he's going to have the same problems as someone like a Granados. Granados, if he permanently stays at welter, they're really going to struggle. They're okay fighters. They're not, splendid fighters, but they'll always give a fair few problems in the fight to prospects or those sort of guys. But I'd expect Venetian to win that fight. Obviously, he's the regular champion. He had a good win out the last time out against Shane Mosley, even though it was a very, very, very faded Shane Mosley. But yeah, I'd expect him to win that fight if he's got anything about him. But yeah, that's not a bad fight actually. That's a pretty decent fight. It's better than the Granados Broner fight for me. So yeah, I'd probably be interested in watching that.
Definitely. I'll be interested to see if Lamont Peterson makes the weight well, because I've heard that he's blown up to quite big weights.
Yeah. He blows up quite a fair bit in between fights, and I don't think he's been particularly active as well. So yeah, spot on with that, mate.
Just briefly, you mentioned the name Felix Diaz there. He's like a really talented fighter. I really rate him. I'd like to see more of him. He's 33 years old, and he's kind of not really doing anything, isn't he? I mean, he's kind of a bit of a frustrating figure for my money.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that as well. I think, Felix Diaz is a very talented fighter. I know Sammy Vasquez obviously lost to him, and Sammy Vasquez obviously lost to Clazo, was it? But Felix Diaz definitely has some real skills. I know he's actually been calling out Terence Crawford. I don't know if you guys heard that. It was on Boxing Scene a few weeks ago, but he was calling him out, and he said if he doesn't fight him, then Victor Pistol he wants all the guys at 140. And I think he's obviously fought at 140 and 147. I do think if he's going to fight, he needs to fight at 140. I think he could, I don't know his body weight and that sort of stuff, but he's very small. He is a very, very small light welter. Or no, sorry, he's a small light welter, but very small welterweight. So I do think he could possibly make lightweight if he pushed himself a bit. I don't know if he'd be weight drained, but maybe that's just me speculating. He's a very talented guy. Obviously, he's like he's an Olympian and that sort of stuff. I don't know if he's won a gold medal or something like that, but yeah, he's kind of lost all momentum in his career. After it was a big win for him against Sammy Vasquez, so it's a bit of a shame. But you know, promotional issues or whatever's getting in the way, or just people are kind of, you know, they've got big fights whenever he's looking for a fight. So yeah, I don't know what it is, but hopefully we get to see him in the ring. He's a good fighter.
100%, 100%. Paul, let's go over to yourself, mate. Obviously, just a bit of a run through there with Jet and Irish Tom. Anything that's you're going to be keeping your eye open for this weekend?
I mean, the Broner fight. I mean, I don't think he's a bad fighter, Granados. He gave Felix. He fought Felix Diaz as well, didn't he? And I think it was quite a close fight. He gave him how? He gave Frankie Gomez a good fight as well. I don't think he's got a lot of power. I agree with Jet. He reminds me of a kind of like, I guess, a poor man's Maidana, I guess. But I just wonder about Broner, you know, like he's given this excuse for missing weight, yeah, that he weren't too well. Which is like, if you're not well, you shouldn't really be fighting. So that, like, to me, that's just, you know, bullshit excuse. I think I don't like to kind of like be snide about someone that's had mental health problems, because I know it's like I've had mental health problems myself, and I know it can be, you know, really, really bad, really debilitating and stuff. But I just wonder how much it might have affected him, the stuff that, you know, like all the stuff that was going on over Christmas, and with him tweeting all of that stuff and whatnot. I just wonder, them sort of things can take their toll on you, you know. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if that didn't go to plan for Broner. You know, the weight issues, the mental health stuff. Granados is no bum. You know, he's not an elite fighter, but he's no bum for me. So
if Broner's got anything, sorry, Paul, if Broner's got anything about him, he should be KOing someone like Granados, even though he's very tough. I think, you know, he's there to be stopped because he's hittable.
He is very tough, but he's never been stopped. I mean, Frankie Gomez didn't stop him. Felix Diaz didn't stop him.
But I think, if he wants to make a statement,
fought Kermit Cintron as well a few years ago, and so I think he's a tough kid. In that Amir Imam fight, he got dropped and he got up off the canvas to beat him.
Dominate the fight. He dominated him.
Yeah, he did. I think Imam dropped him in the first round, as I recall, straight right. So yeah, I mean, but I agree, he should be winning the fight, but I don't think he'll knock him out.
Or fair enough. If he doesn't knock him out, or he should dominate, like completely dominate him. If he's thinking about doing anything at welterweight, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I see. That's the thing. It's 140 and 147. It's a big jump in it. If you like, yeah. I mean, I know we can't make 140, but I just don't see him as being big enough to. I mean, can you imagine him in with somebody like Errol Spence?
That's a bit of a problem. That's a bit of a problem for him. Yeah.
To be honest, I think, you know, I don't see him doing much at 147. So I don't know. It's a shame. It's a shame.
I find it really frustrating because I'm actually, in terms of him as a boxer, I'm actually a fan of Adrian Broner, like quite a big fan of Adrian Broner. I think he's really talented. I think he's really capable, and I think he does things very, very well. I think I personally think he's very good to watch, and I just have frustrations because his two losses were so predictable and so similar, and essentially it was two big guys who were strong guys who put the pressure on him and who he couldn't keep off, and it was so clear, you know, that he needed to be dropping down to 140, but it just doesn't seem to be happening. And you know, I think Adrian Broner had the potential to be a really, really, really big player at the 140-pound division. But I think you're spot on, Paul. Errol, Spence, Kell, Brook, Keith Furman. I just think guys of that size, he's not going to be able to deal with. I mean, let's not forget, he's full weight class. You know, he's a full weight world champion because he started his career, 3 weight classes below 147. I'm kind of eternally frustrated, but I will be tuned in. And I guess that's the thing that's going to be catching my eye this weekend is love him or hate him. Adrian Broner is someone I watch, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of shots of him at basketball games and stuff with, burgers and cokes and looking a bit like a Big Mac himself. So I think maybe the issues that he's got, I think he brings a lot of it on himself. I mean, for me, he's the kind of guy that, if he was kind of like a Floyd, a stay in the gym, stay healthy and fit at all times type of guy, yeah, he probably could have done fantastic reflexes. That's one thing I always noticed about Broner, like he like his
fast hands as well.
Oh, good, yeah, and fast hands, of course, yeah.
Like the shot he knocked down with he knocked Sean Porter down with very quick.
Some of the little short shots, really shortened up, sort of like little left ups and stuff.
He gets a lot of power behind it as well, which is even better. It's a shame. Probably he's probably his own worst enemy, which is a bit of a shame. But
yeah, there's been a few fighters like that, haven't there? Kind of tortured souls, I guess, that just like they never quite fully realise their potential, and I think he's probably going to be one of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Interesting stuff. That brings us to the end of our agenda for tonight. So, as I always do, let me whip around the panel and see if anyone else has got anything else they want to throw in before we call it a night. So, Irish, I'll start with you, mate, because we haven't heard from you in a few minutes.
I'm just afraid that Paul's going to beat the head off me if I open my mouth. I just want to say that this is what my wish list is now for the next while, is that Conor McGregor sparks out Floyd Mayweather, moves up to middleweight, and then takes out GGG, and then retires a legend.
2-0.
2-0, boys. 2-0.
Wow. Wow. If he did do that, would he go down as the greatest boxer of all time?
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll see.
Here, on a more positive, less sarcastic note, this is turning out to be, I think you said the same in one of your videos, because it turned out to be a great year for boxing so far. Think of these fights. Think of the fights that we're going to be getting. We're going to be getting Joshua Klitschko, Spence, Brook. We've had Thurman Garcia. We're going to have GGG versus
Jacobs.
Jacobs, yeah. We could get GGG Canelo and GGG what you call it? Saunders. We're getting Huey against
Parker.
So thanks. Today Bob Arum has said that that Lomachenko is thinking to move up to 135. We might get Lomo versus Mikey. Like, there's more good fights planned this year than there has been, I'd say, any year for the last 5 years.
And let's not forget, we've already had the Gale Jack, Fight of the Year contender, and we've already had Carl Frampton,
Garcia.
Leo Santa Cruz.
Yeah, and Garcia's Latikanen, another good fight. So we've had we have a few dull weeks here now, but it's going to get ticking, lads. When it's a hit March, we're going to get a fucking...
Hey, Bellew.
Don't forget the other ultra competitive one coming up there. Hey, Bellew.
Hey, Bellew, yeah. We might even have John Ryder to throw into the mix, guys.
Did anybody see any of that Bellew? Hey, they're releasing little dribs and drabs of his gloves off.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Oh, Christ.
Do you know what? But everyone's going to watch it. That's the worst thing. Everyone will watch it. Pure entertainment.
I guarantee you this will have one of the worst undercards in recent memory. What's on it so far?
Yeah, undercard. It's the Horror Davies, Derry Matthews is the co-main, isn't it?
Has Derry Matthews ever fought at light welterweight?
No.
There you go. What else is there? That's co-main.
And he's coming off a loss as well.
That's awful co-main.
He's coming off a loss. That's even worse.
That is a dreadful co-main. In fairness, I thought that would be like fourth down the list or something. That is a terrible co-main. Fuck me. What do you call it? I saw an IFL video of your man. What's his name? Yeah, sorry. O'Hara Davies.
Yeah.
Outside looking for some Scousers.
Standing next to him when he was doing it. It was so cringeworthy.
I actually liked it.
Yeah.
I thought he was like such
get me in.
I actually thought it was hilarious. I don't know why. I've warmed to O'Hara Davies. I don't know. Normally I can't stand him. But I think I must be the only person who hit the like button on that video. I'm warming to him. I think I'm warming to him.
Speaking of hitting the like button, can you guys help me out and please hit the like button if you're watching live in the chat? Helps massively with the visibility. But yeah, no, I'm a big O'Hara Davies fan as well, Tom, I must admit. Let's
just be realistic here. Does no one listen to us anymore, Tom? You know, it's 20 to 11. Everybody's fucking asleep.
We've got 132 people watching live, mate. We're making waves.
Well, most of those people only turn on the podcast because they can't find it hard to sleep. And then we just put them to sleep. That's how it goes.
Maybe there's a few of the hardcore are still in the chat. I can see. So
off their face on goofballs.
There's a few of them. There's a few of them still hanging in there. Jet, over to you, mate. Anything else you want to throw into the mix?
No, I'm good.
Fantastic. We'll save the best to last in that case. Paul, over to you, mate.
Oh no! I thought it was unmuting myself. I was muting myself. There was a few things that people said in the post you put up on Facebook, but I guess we're over now. So I guess I'll just go ahead and say no.
No, if there's any, I mean, to be honest, Paul, I can't remember all the comments, but if there was anything that stood out, yeah, feel free.
What should Luis Ortiz do? No, the comment was from Alex Barbosa. Should he stick it out, fight against an average guy and wait for a shot with a WBA, or if it does get called a WBC final eliminator, what should Luis do?
Fight Stavern. My opinion. Probably a winnable fight. Winnable against Wilder if he wants to face Wilder. They're winnable fights. He's going to be waiting for a long time for that WBA shot. WBC will probably enforce it within 90 to 120 days on Wilder. So,
you think?
Well, they'll enforce it whether or not Wilder takes it or not. That's another story. But I think they'll enforce it within 120 days, which is about 4 months. And obviously the fight gets made after.
Jesus. Are the WBC not the worst ones?
I think that's optimistic thinking, but yeah.
It's like
WBA.
Amir Khan is like WBC mandatory for like 4 or 5 years at this stage.
Yeah, but I think Khan's obviously, with him, he's obviously wanted the Brook fight. Then he's gone to fight Canelo. Then he's come back down and said, I want a warm-up fight. So obviously he's going to be waiting around. So I think that's kind of his fault. The WBC have said he's obviously next in line. Whether or not they make the fight is kind of down to him and his team, I guess. Obviously he's sort of sacked some of his team from what I've heard. And obviously he's had a sex tape that's come out. So I'm not going to comment any further on Amir Khan. But obviously it's optimistic thinking on for Ortiz. But, I guess only Eddie Hearn knows what he's going to do with Luis Ortiz. IBF, WBC, WBA. He's the man to ask, I guess. He's the main guy. So to ask.
I've actually got one more to throw into the mix because there's been a little bit of breaking news since we've been live, actually. So
really?
WBA have ordered a new heavyweight title fight. Not for the super belt, not for the regular belt, but this time for the interim belt.
Oh,
and
God.
it is possibly marginally worse than Briggs Oquendo.
Oh,
Stepping into the ring as the two competitors, Manuel Char, who was recently knocked out by a cruiserweight, if I'm not mistaken,
yeah.
versus none other, blast from the past, Odlanair Solis.
Oh,
Most
my
famous for losing
God.
2 fights against Tony Thompson.
Oh my
This is
life.
pathetic. This is pathetic, honestly. This
Manuel,
organisation cannot get any worse.
it's been reported on Boxing Scene, Manuel Char versus Odlanair Solis set for March the 11th in Bonn. So it looks like it's actually happening.
This can't get any worse. This organisation is awful.
I know.
And the WBA have been around the longest, which is even worse.
They're the original.
Yeah, they're the original ones, which is even worse.
Listen, is Uruguay in Brazil, is that next week or the week after?
It's next week, I think. Yeah, next week.
This week, Charlo is fighting this week. Did you think it was the week after?
No, I said it was this week.
Oh, sorry. I
said it was.
I misheard.
I think
my thing goes in and out. So
No, I thought
this weekend. Yeah.
I thought you said next week as well, Jet. Actually, but
I can't remember. I'll be honest. If I did say next week, my
You
apologies.
said next week, yeah. So that's your wages doc for tonight, I'm afraid.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
I'm getting
Do I
a
get-
Housley purse anyway. To be honest.
his weight.
Bonus. Do I get a knockout bonus?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to divvy him up between the two of us, Tom. He told me already.
Oh,
Oh,
guys,
brilliant.
but I think
You might be able to buy a Fredo with it, Paul.
I think I deserve my purse anyway. Kirill Relic was mentioned on this, and I was the first guy to say, yeah, I watched him. So, guys, I'm the, I should get some credit for that.
Absolutely. But who'd have thought it? 7 heavyweights fighting for titles. Lam Sexton, Gary Cornish, Alexander Ustinov, Manuel Char, Odlanair Solis, Shannon Briggs, and Frez Oquendo. Who would win in a Royal Rumble between those 7?
Honestly, mate, I think the ref has got more chance of winning that, whoever the ref is. Ian John
I don't think
Lewis.
I had any of those 7 in my top 30, when I did my top 30 heavyweights.
I'll tell
Gary
you who
Cornish
wins. Who wins is whoever brings in the heaviest walking stick. That's who wins.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
my God. I can't even comment on that.
And on that note, it's probably come to the end of the show, guys. So let me just say a few thank yous. First, thanks to the panel, as always, to Jet, Paul, to Tom for giving up your Wednesday nights. Thanks a lot to everyone who's watched live tonight. We've had 150 people watching live. It's not been, there's no landmark fights this week. There's no Joshua Klitschko fight this week. So appreciate all you hardcores tuning in and listening, and to everyone who's been chatting away in the chat and, helping the show. Whether you're watching live now or if you're watching this after it's gone on later, please do take the time to hit the thumbs up button. Do subscribe to my channel, the Boxing Gossip channel. Please also take a look at Jet's channel, which is the Boxing Discussions channel, so you can check out some of the stuff he's doing over there as well. But yeah, we return live every Wednesday at 8:30. If you press subscribe, you'll get a notification when we go live. And yeah, we'll be back next week, I'm sure. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Ciao.
Take care, guys.
Cheers.